My name is Rusty Gaston. I am the CEO of Sony Music Publishing Nashville. And today we are launching our podcast, Thank a Songwriter. This is our opportunity to have Hall of Fame conversations with some of the most successful songwriters in Nashville and beyond. This is our chance to say thank you for the people who have created the songs that have impacted our lives and yours, because greatness deserves gratitude. All right, well, welcome to our first guest, Ashley Gorley. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, man.
You know, we have to start with a few accolades because, Ashley, you are the most commercially successful songwriter of all time, currently celebrating 83 number one radio singles, and you have written 124 ASCAP award-winning songs.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Which is incredible. And some of those number ones and ASCAP awards are being performed on the Post Malone tour this summer, which you recently went to at AT&T Stadium. You saw Post Malone, Jelly Roll, and these guys performing your songs. And I mean, that stadium holds 100,000 people. And I mean, just the size of that venue alone is awe-inspiring and kind of takes your breath away. You can't even believe there's a building this big, and it's made to bring people together to experience, you know, an event together. And this happened to be a concert. Like, what was that like being in there and hearing Post Malone singing your song and all these people singing along?
Oh, dude, it's still very, very surreal. Like, I feel like I didn't even do it. You know, a little bit of imposter syndrome or whatever they call it, I guess. But I was there with a couple tape room employees, Caroline and Catherine, and a bunch of other, you know, friends on the crew. It's so crazy to go from that first moment to like actually playing basketball with Jelly Roll during the day and knowing Post and having written some stuff with him. And he's such a superstar. I never even thought I would have a chance to work with him ever. So there were so many emotions going on. And then when he plays, you know, 5 or 6 of my songs played, I Had Some Help, and there's a billion people jumping around. That never gets old. You know, it's very, very surreal. So it always freaks me out a little bit, but it's fun to just be in the crowd and watch people loving the song. It definitely pays off in that moment, probably more than any other moment.
Man, that is awesome. Now, you've seen your songs performed by artists at arenas, and in June in New York City, you will be on the top songwriter stage with your Songwriter Hall of Fame induction. And the level of success you have achieved is historic, is monumental, but you have decades and decades of hits in front of you. Other 2025 inductees are George Clinton and the Doobie Brothers and Rodney Jerkins, and like all of those people influenced you so much.
Yep.
Like, what does this mean to you?
I would go to the Songwriters Hall of Fame just as a fan. Like, I'm a true songwriter fan, so I've gone to the show several years. It did not cross my mind that I'm eligible or that I would ever make any kind of list to get in there. That just wasn't something I thought about. You know, there's not many primarily country writers in there or anything like that. So I don't know. The fact when I got on that big list, it freaked me out, whatever the main one, the ballot, I guess.
Yeah.
But definitely I was like, that's cool to be on that ballot. That's wild that I'm on there. I'm obviously not going to beat any of these people. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody cares about these songs. That's how writers think. You know, it's not like I was like, oh, I hope this happens, or like, oh man, this would be great to make this happen one day. So to get it the first time I'm on the ballot is crazy. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that I won't fully understand until I'm there, I don't think, you know?
I mean, of all the songwriters in the world, there's only 472 songwriters who are inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. What do you think your mom and dad think about that?
Oh, man, I mean, my mom would be proud. I mean, she's gone now. She would always be proud. My dad is very proud. I grew up in a household where it wasn't a musical household. Nobody's playing stuff. Nobody knew that I could be a writer. It wasn't like they were like, oh, there's this place called Belmont. I found that stuff on my own. But even better than growing up in a household of music, I kind of grew up in a farm and factory town where not many people like their jobs, you know. So my dad's advice was always like, find something you love to do and figure out a way to make money at it, because he'd been on the other side of that, like the whole town is. So that influence was huge, because I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And they were never like, that's dumb, get a degree, get a real job. I didn't get any of that. So I'm very thankful that they were like that. But I mean, we're bringing like 30 people up there. We're going for it in New York in June. So we've got other writers that have played a big part of my career coming, friends, family, my wife's family, like my kids are going to be there. It's going to be crazy. Even to talk about it kind of stresses me out.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be a lot more fun than stressful. But your family, your friends, so many in the Nashville community, everybody's just so proud of you for this accomplishment. And plus, we're excited to see who's going to perform and what songs from your massive collection they're going to choose.
So it's been wild even going back to think of what songs would be performed or what all songs kind of went into it. You know, even that time when Sony and Domain presented those 80 basketballs to me with all the hits on there or whatever, I forget. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this song. And all these stories come back to your mind. Does make you feel old, been here for a while, but it feels great to think that those things mattered enough or stacked up to be to be awarded for in this way, because it's writers and people like that voting for it. It's a different kind of thing than some of the other, awards are. So this one definitely, so far in my career, means the most to me. That I would even be in the same breath as those people that are getting up there is wild to me.
Well, you deserve this, and you've worked crazy hard to reach this moment. In saying that, has your definition of success changed now that you've reached this height?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, it hasn't changed a lot. If I could write down that my occupation is songwriter, and I don't have to work 3 other jobs to pay for life, and I can travel some, and I can put my kids through school, that was it for me. If I can do this for a living, if I can make up songs every day and get through it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And like one day get a house and one day whatever. It's always been like that. Maybe I wasn't aiming high enough, but I was never like, man, if I could only get a Grammy or a CMA or be in the Hall of Fame, like that stuff it wasn't even a thing. But for me, success was and is being able to do what you love, and if that's not songwriting, it's whatever. If it's something else, then it is what it is. So definitely awards and recognition comes secondary to me. I think it always will, and it always has, because I didn't know anything about it,
Well, I think those awards, and especially something like the Songwriter Hall of Fame induction, it's kind of the dream beyond the dream.
Yeah, it's not even like, it's not like a goal for sure.
Right.
It is a dream just to be like, wow, I did, people liked these songs, I guess. I guess that's the thought. And that for a writer is kind of all, that's everything. Like people are singing along to this. Having a song that marks a moment in people's life is like the golden, the holy grail or whatever. Knowing that like, oh gosh, somebody's going to do their first dance to this, or graduate to this, or get married to this, or this is going to play at a funeral. Those things, especially in our world, the country world, writing those kind of songs and having a catalog that includes some of those is a big deal, So I do take that in, and I'm super, blown away by it, and I'm trying my best to just like accept it, be in the moment, not get too stressed out about it. You know what I mean? About having to make a speech or anything like that, and try to get there and celebrate and have a good time.
Well, it's no big deal, but your name is on the same level as icons like Prince, Timbaland, Mariah Carey, Alan Jackson, Max Martin, Toby Keith. I know you've been to some Hall of Fame inductions. What has that been like for you to be in that room? And is there a certain moment that sticks out you remember of being at one of those celebrations?
I mean, I'm just a songwriter fan. I remember, I don't know how many years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, somebody invited me to go to this thing, which I didn't know existed, the Songwriter Hall of Fame thing. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. Do people know about this? It's like the best ceremony ever. So there are so many people. I mean, for me, being a non-artist songwriter and seeing whether it's Babyface, Teddy Riley, Jim and Jam, and Terry Lewis wrote every song I listened to, in middle school and high school, and they're just up there getting in, and it's just amazing to thank them on that side. And then there's, Don Schlitz is in, Bobby Braddock. I got to see Alan Jackson, Bill Anderson. I got to see Hillary Lindsey, who's a big influence. I mean, she's one of my friends, but she's amazing. Just seeing some country people in there, seeing, there's so many people that have gotten in, seeing Alan Menken get in, who wrote a million Disney songs that I love. It just made everything feel real. It just made it feel like I can't believe I'm even in this room. Never again pictured that I would be up on stage, but there's just so many people. Diane Warren got an award. She's already in, but she got some award last year, and man, I've played piano to so many of her things, trying to figure out how they go, and there's just an endless list. These are the people I'm fans of, grew up being fans of, even more than the artists, even though I loved so many different artists over the years. Prince, Stevie Wonder, like I said, I mean, so many different genres, and seen REM play last year. I mean, it's just countless how many people have made an impact on me and made great memories and been a part of those for me.
Man, it's so cool to hear you talk about what a big fan you are of these other inductees.
I've always been a songwriter fan, a fan of finding out. The first thing I'll do and still do is look at those song credits and see who made this up, who thought this up.
Yeah.
To be contacted and do an interview with Nile, was insane. I'm just like, all right, why are these people even talking to me? And I still feel that way, but definitely there's been so many people that that have made such an impact on me that I've taken little pieces of and thrown in this big pot that I kind of use as a wealth of my knowledge when I'm creating. Still, if I have a session today, all those people are part of it. It's just a thing that I always tell new kids at Belmont if I'm doing a speech or talking about with my own writers, just to not deny your influences. That's all you got.
Yeah, totally. And our influences, they're just everything. They're what brought us into this business. They've shaped us and they've inspired us to find our own voices.
We are what we listen to and what we watch and who we're with. And I think that's a really important thing, is not to deny that. I mean, take that in and then use that to come up with what you want to bring to the world, in the room and as a creative and as a songwriter. So that the Hall of Fame in general has already made a big impact on me. Every time I've gone to the show, I go, as soon as I'm on the plane, I'm making a crazy playlist of all the stuff that those people wrote that I love that made an impact on me, and just listening to it. So that whole next week, I'm going retro and listening to whoever's songs, the people that just got in. So that's
I spent all this morning listening to the Doobie Brothers.
Oh yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. It just reminds
songs.
You. Yeah,
so
it's
unreal.
crazy. You see somebody who's like, this guy wrote Footloose or Shout or whatever. Yeah. Some of these things I've got to see people perform. It's mind blowing. And I always have a heart for the, I love the artist, but for those writers that you get up there and you're like, who is this guy? Which is totally me. Like, who is this dude? And then for them to do a little medley of these songs, you're like, no way. And that's always cool to like see and to be like, this is amazing, And for me to be that for anybody is hard to fathom, but it's fun to think about,
Well, we know your career didn't start at the Hall of Fame level. Tell us, how did you get started as a songwriter?
Oh man, well, I do remember this. My sophomore year at Belmont here in Nashville, go Bruins. I was just like a music lover, right? So I was like DJing parties, making playlists, making mixtapes, kind of writing songs, doing remixes, doing whatever, just loving music in my bedroom like everybody else, a million kids do that. But once I got to Belmont and took that first year of just like figuring out what the music business even is, I knew I wanted to be in it somehow, but I didn't know how. And then that sophomore year of music publishing class, man, and I was like class 2 or 3 when they're like, a staff writer gets this, and I was like, whoa. What do you have to do that? Do you have to be able to read music? No. Do you have to be like a good singer? No. Do you have to be a proficient instrumentalist? No. I was like, all right, I'm chasing that. So that was when I knew it was at least a career that you could make $15,000 a year doing on a draw and not have to, whatever, and not have to get a real job. So that was always my goal, was to be able to write songwriter on my taxes, as my occupation.
That's incredible. When you came to Belmont, was songwriting the goal, or you were just educating yourself on the music business to figure out where you could carve a path?
Yeah, to me, I loved making, trying to make beats or just creating it or whatever, but I didn't know if I would be in a label somewhere or for a little while I thought I might be in a studio, and that was quickly, the worst 2 grades I ever got in my life were audio engineering and piano. I had to drop piano so I didn't fail it, because they're like, everything you're doing is wrong. And then audio engineering just got too much, too scientific for me. I'm too ADD to be pushing that many buttons or know why I'm pushing them, So those kind of found their way out, worked their way out of the circle. But yeah, I thought I might be either on the A&R side, of the business side, the publishing side. I always wanted to be a publisher. And I actually didn't know if I was going to be, I wanted to kind of be both, which is what's happened, which is awesome. But I wanted to try the writing thing, but I also thought, all right, if that's not the thing, then I'll hopefully be a publisher somehow.
So while you were at Belmont, you realized you wanted to be a songwriter. You ended up getting your first publishing deal. Tell us, what were those early days like when you were writing back then?
Oh man, trying to write one a day. I would write by myself or with whoever they tricked into writing with me. At the time I had nothing going on. That, looking back, it's like, why did anybody even get in the room, with me? But I wrote there for like a year and a half, and then that company folded. I didn't have a deal for like 6 months or something like that. I was out doing temporary staffing work and working at FedEx and doing warehouse stuff and doing all that. So that was my first taste of having a writing deal and losing one, and then having to find another, and feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to find another, situation. And that's where Combustion Music came in and signed me after that, about 6 months after that company folded.
Yeah, man, finding those early believers, those people that believe in you, are so important, because those publishers are who get your songs to the artist. So speaking of that, is there a song that was placed with an artist from the beginning of your career that made you feel like, oh man, I'm really doing this?
It's probably Carrie. The first memory I have, I remember being in the car, and the first number one I had, Don't Forget to Remember Me, was on the radio, and it was trying to get to number one. It was like my first experience even knowing how the charts worked or whatever like that, and I had no idea. And we're riding, again, we're like in the car, and it's playing, And I'm like, please, I'm waiting on the call to see if it went number one or not, because it was barely going to get there, you know? And found out it did, which was on my daughter's second birthday. It was a whole surreal situation where we found out it, you know, we're out of town somewhere, and that was on the radio, and we found out that same day that it was going to be the number one song of the next week. So I definitely remember that situation and freaking out about it and being like, should I call a bunch of stations and request it, or how do I make it go up? What can I do to help it? And it's like nothing. So I learned that's out of my control right away. But we were really excited about that. And then, you know, she was so huge. It was a unique situation because she'd won Idol and was like the hottest thing, you know, sold I don't know how many records, a diamond record or something right out of the gate. So I got to be part of a huge artist's first record or whatever with that first hit.
Man, that's awesome. So for those listening who may think like you were an overnight success, from the time you started writing to getting your first hit, like how long did that take?
I mean, my first hit, my first top 40 was also my first number one, which is Carrie Underwood. That happened year 7 of having a writing deal, which means I've been in town for 11 years at that point.
Right.
So it takes a second, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a story where I wrote my first like pro co-write was a guy named David Lee, not David Lee Murphy, but remember 1970 something David Lee. Yeah. And he told me, he kind of like took me under his wing for that session, and I could tell he just took the session to freak me out and be like, this is how you write a song, you know? But David told me it would take 7 years, and literally I just took it like the gospel. I was like, okay, this is going to take 7 years, so everybody buckle up. So I wasn't as disappointed as I would have been if I thought it was going to take a year. You know what I mean? I just was like, all right, that's what he said, so it's coming, you know, and it sure enough did take 7 years.
Well, I know you're saying 7, but they say this is a 10-year town. That's what's so great about our community, this community of Music Row. We all came here together, dreaming these dreams, whether you are the receptionist, whether you're working in the tape room, whether you are a Hall of Fame songwriter. We all live in this same ecosystem, and we get to be in each other's orbits, and that is so special. So let's talk about like your daily ritual. Like, how's your daily creative process changed?
I've always treated every day different. Like, I'm not a big routine guy as far as like every session I'm usually somewhere different, or I'm with different people, all that kind of stuff. I don't do regulars or anything, but I get up earlier than I want to, you know, every day, especially getting kids ready for school and stuff. My wife does all that, but I get up now and I'll do devotion first thing and then do a workout, you know, at 8. And I didn't used to do that. You know, I was just, you know, needed to do that after a while, but that's kind of what it is now. I guess back in the day, I would just get up and roll in and try to think of ideas, and I was just doing it 24/7, you know, just trying to come up with stuff for the next day, or just trying to think of ideas. I mean, I would, you know, at the beginning I was working, you know, till 6, and then I would write till midnight, go home, get up and do it again when I had a job at the publishing company. But yeah, my routine is kind of, you know, it is what it is. So I would get up, do the devotion, do the workout, and then I'll roll into town. You know, it's still a great experience just kind of coming into town and being like, here's the buildings, here's the people, let's go get it, let's get after it. So that still energizes me to kind of come into town, or now sometimes it's in my house or it's somebody's home studio or whatever, but just go in there and see what happens, you know.
Well, with Nashville traffic today, it probably takes you even longer to get to where you're going. So I would think you have even more time to prepare for your writes. What does that look like for you? Like, how do you get ready for your co-writes?
I mean, the process for me, especially back then, would start the night before. So I would stay up and make sure I had something to bring to the table. It's still nerve-wracking to think you got to go.
And that could be anything. That could be a piece of melody.
Yeah,
that could be a lyric hook. That could be an idea.
Mm-hmm. And now I do that less, you know, but at the beginning I made sure I had 20 titles and 10 melodies and little half songs ready, so that when I go in there, somebody's at least impressed enough to let me stay in the room or maybe get back with me. And I was lucky early on to get with some, you know, a couple of great writers that kind of were willing to spend time with me and took me under their wing a little bit.
What do you love most about co-writing?
Oh man, I just like I'm not good at being alone. I don't love that.
Is it the community aspect of it?
I mean, friendship kind of, you know what I mean? I love just hanging out with people. I'm not somebody that needs their alone time. I mean, I love to turn the music stuff off and chill, but I love people being around. You know, we had kids really early. There's always been 1 million people around in the house. I got married young, so that's, I feel at home with that. I don't ever need to get off by myself. Yeah, the co-writing is just, man, bouncing ideas off somebody is so beneficial. And I just love having somebody in there to trust, and somebody where all the doors are closed. Nobody can hear me rambling through these terrible lines and melodies. And I got some 1 or 2 people in here that are on the same page and are understanding. You know, it's almost like you find your people where they know that there's a little bit of gold in that random stuff I'm saying, and this idea that sounds terrible at first, but they know how to flip it. I've just always loved that co-writing process. I mean, I haven't written songs by myself for a long time, unless I'm just starting them, and I like to bring them into a situation and see I just trust my co-writers, more than I just trust my own instincts, if that makes sense.
That's incredible. I love that. So in the writer's room, you're writing from an idea that may have impacted your life or the artist's life or something you heard that resonated with you. Have you heard a story about how one of your songs has impacted a listener's life? Like somebody who you've never met, but the story made its way back to you of they walked down the aisle to your song, or your song helped them say I love you for the first time. Is there a story that comes to mind?
There's a few of those, thankfully, but there's a lot of people. I have this song, Then, I Thought I Loved You Then, that I wrote with Cristobal and Brad Paisley that he put out, and that a lot of people that I know, not a lot, but several people said that was their first dance at their wedding, or like that was played there, and I was like, no way. That's just come up in like passing once they figured out I wrote that song. There's been a few friends where that's happened. I've been at a graduation and they play You're Gonna Miss This, or like there's funny memes about kids kicking and screaming, getting their diaper changed, and people being like, are you gonna miss this really? That are still going around. So I know that impacts people, and people reference that song. I've been at a funeral and heard You Should Be Here being one of the songs with Cole Swindell that was played, and nobody has any idea I wrote that song. They didn't play it for me. It's just like, oh, this is marking this moment for them. So there have been a few of those, thankfully. Sometimes it's just a good feeling song at a concert they're singing along with, but sometimes it definitely marks one of those moments, especially seeing it be the theme of a graduation, or something that's played at a funeral or wedding is pretty cool.
Your songs have been a background to so many people's lives, but saying that, what song are you most proud of, or do you feel like represents you best?
Oh man, I'm all over the map so much. I mean, with catchy stuff, with the Morgan stuff, the Post stuff, which I love and I'm proud of, and not that it goes real deep, but I'm just as proud of those. I mean, over my career, I'm Not Okay Now is getting a big reaction. You're Gonna Miss This is probably the one that gets referenced a lot for me by Trace Atkins, just because I wrote that and had kids that were, barely walking, and now they're almost all out of the house. And so I think I'm reminded of that every day that I'm seeing my youngest kid drive his truck, and I'm just like, oh wow, that got away from me. That's real. I was kind of, when I wrote the song, I was kind of making it up, and then now I'm actually living it out. So that's kind of a surreal feeling to be like, oh, I guess I was writing this for me. I didn't know that at the time. So that one is hard to beat, as far as like that situation actually happened, the bridge of that song where the repairman comes over and all that. That's not common for me to have like an exact thing that happened in my life be in the song. Right. That to the detail. So that one I think is going to be hard to beat, as far as a song that kind of represents my life, being so intertwined with family and the kids growing up too fast and me being sad about that every day. So it'd probably be that one.
So today we do have a letter of a fan, that's something they wanted to say to you. Wow, and they said, Dear Ashley, I just want to say thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. The first time I heard I Am Not Okay, I felt like someone had cracked open my chest and put words to emotions I didn't even know how to name. There's something incredibly powerful about hearing your pain echoed back to you in someone else's voice. It reminded me that even in the hardest moments, when you feel like you're barely holding it together, you're not the only one who's ever felt that way. This song has gotten me through some of the darkest days. I've cried to it, sat quietly to it, blasted it in the car when I just needed to feel understood. And I've shared it with others I know who are struggling, and I've seen it move them too. Thank you for your honesty, your courage, and your craft. I'm endlessly grateful. With love and respect, Alex.
That's awesome. Wow.
Well, man, what you do is important. It means something. The songs you write are important, and we are blessed. We're lucky enough to work in your orbit, but we're so grateful for what you do as a creative. And the reason God put you here, you are making the most of it, and you make all of us proud to know you and be able to be around you. So please keep doing it, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Awesome.
And thank you for listening to Thank a Songwriter, where we honor the songwriters who have written songs that have impacted our lives. Be sure to follow us at Sony Music Pub Nashville. Send us your thank you notes, and the next time you listen to a song that impacts your life, be sure to thank a songwriter.